Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I got some questions about comparing Gravity versus Radical. They are two of Head's control rackets, but they're obviously a little bit different, and one of the key differences is the head shape and head size. The Radicals are 98 square inches, giving you a little bit more of a whippy feel, a little bit better control, technically speaking, but they have a little bit of a thicker beam overall, so that's where the power comes. Whereas the Gravity has a larger head, teardrop shape, big sweet spot, that's the whole idea, but still a thinner beam, lower stiffness for a bit more control. So they kind of get really close when you look at the head CPI scale, which is their control power index, and they can really be hard to know which one is for you. Some players struggle a little bit with 100 square inch head size on the one-handed backhand. I'm one of those. Feel much more natural with the Radical, for example, while some players like that extra pop you get on the serve with the Gravity. It kind of plows through a bit better, has a higher twist weight with the wider head. So they're obviously different models. I decided to take out MP and MP and Pro and go through that. So if we look at starting with the mid pluses, Radical mid plus used to be a 295 gram racket. It's now a 300 gram racket, so a little bit more weight, a little bit more beefiness. The swing weight is kind of where it's always been, around 320 something with strings, which is a pretty good solid swing weight. You don't really need to customize. I haven't done that with this racket, for example, which is the new MP. So it's a easy, people-friendly racket. There's so many players that can use a Radical similar to a blade. It's such a versatile frame. You can be an attacking player, defensive player, and it still works pretty well. It's very dependable. You get good control. With the blade, you can choose 18, 20, 16, 19. I think that would also be a good idea for the Radical, because some Radical players would love to have an 18-20. The pros get that if they want, but also us rec players, I'm more of an 18-20 player generally. So for me, I would prefer this with an 18-20 pattern. Not saying it's uncontrollable, but I just felt a little bit more connected to that, a bit more dependable. Now a word from our sponsor.
If you're a singles player and you're unhappy with your shot selection, you should check out the new rules of singles by our friends over at Fuzzy Yellow Balls. 20 new rules inside this app. So new strategies featuring Craig O'Shaughnessy, who you might know from working with Novak Djokovic. He's a tennis analytics expert, and he has come up with new strategies proven on his big data analysis to show how you will win more points. So that's what you're going to learn inside the new rules of tennis. There's a special introductory deal that lasts until Thursday, March 30th. So pick up a copy now if you want to save some money and make sure you win more singles matches in 2023.
The MP, on the other hand, this is 295 grams, so a little bit lighter. Obviously, the head is quite different. This is more traditional head size. This is a bit wider, more open. And this one has a pretty similar beam thickness, around 22 millimeter. This one is a little bit more tapered. Power levels are quite similar. This is a 1620, this is a 1619. So the added cross string here gives you decent control, but I would still say it's a pretty spin-friendly racket, the MP. It does give the ball a decent lift. And obviously you can tweak that with string tension and string. If you want a shaped string, lower tension, you get a little bit more launch angle on the ball. You can always change your racket based on that. But stability are also quite similar because of the wider head. So it's really what you feel when you connect with the ball. This has a bit lower stiffness. These new Radicals, the Radical always used to be quite soft on the arm. These new Radicals is a little bit stiffer. I notice people sometimes complain about tennis elbow, or you shouldn't try to string them too high because they're not the softest on the arm. And that's really my only peeve with these, because I do like playing with them a lot, is that the feeling and the comfort is not quite what it should be in a Radical. If they could get more of a pocketing effect, a little bit lower flex on the Radical, I think that would be the best idea possible for the next generation of Radicals. This one is a bit softer, a little bit more arm friendly, a little bit more forgiving outside the sweet spot, but I feel like I get more control with this one, and it also feels more natural, my one-handed backhand. So for me, for me personally, I would go with the Radical MP. But I think for intermediate players, the MP is great because you get control, it's a little bit more forgiving, and it has a nice feel and it's comfortable on the arm. You can string it with a multi-filament if you want max comfort and a bit more power, or you can string it with a softer polyester string. For example, the MSV Swift that I talked about, or anything like a head lynx touch and so on. So Gravity, a little bit more user-friendly. This one more for you who want control. Maybe you played a while, you need to be a little bit higher level to manage the Radical MP, I would say. And think about how you string it. I liked it the best probably with a hybrid setup. either natural gut or like a great multi-filament in the crosses just to soften that response a little bit, because it is relatively stiff. I also like it with head hawk power at around 23 kilo. That worked for me. I want a lot of control for my racket, so this is a good racket for that. So that's the MP version, both in the Gravity and the Radical. If we look at the Pro, Radical Pro, the Gravity Pro, also many similarities. 1619 here, 1820 here. This is a denser pattern. This one is a smaller head size though, so that's again, the Radicals are 98 square inches. Normally I would have expected the Pro to be 1820, but they went 1619 with both, but this one is a little bit denser, it feels like. CPI level, the power control index, 200, so these are very, very similar. I did a video where I compared Prestiges with these, for example, before. This one feels like you get more plow through. The twist rate is higher, so you go through the ball a bit more with the Gravity. Also a bit bigger on serve. This one, it just plows through the ball a bit better on serve. I have struggled a little bit more with the Radical Pro this time around. Can't really find a string setup that's great. Ended up with Hawk Power full bed. The hybrid setups that I tried with both natural gut and another polyester like Lynx Tor didn't quite work for me. Somehow the launch angle got a little bit strange. I didn't feel 100% connected to the ball. Hawk Power, it played well, but I'm still more of a fan of the Gravity. I feel like the Gravity Pro is one of Head's best rackets in a long time, really. Since it came out 2019, I think it was. Really a controlled frame that still gives you nice power and a beefier swing weight for you more advanced players. So I would say this is for even more advanced than this one, because the swing weight is higher on the Gravity, and you need to be quite a good player to play with this, with the 1820 low launch. Advanced players generally like this, and this has become one of the most popular rackets among head pros. They really like the Gravity Pro. We see players switch to it from time to time. We have Rublev, we have Zverev, a bunch of other players that really like the Gravity Pro, which for a good reason. It's a control frame with a thin beam, with a bigger head size that gives you a little bit more forgiveness on the ever increasing pace of tennis. So that's a comparison of these two. I would go for the Gravity Pro in this case. Personally, I feel like more connected to that racket. So that's a little bit of a comparison. They are very similar in many ways. The smaller head size of the Radical will give you a little bit more whippiness and feel slightly faster, even the specs being the same. So that could be a good thing for you one-handed backhand players. Usually like a little bit more whip. You get a bit more stability, a bit more plow through, with the racket naturally go through the ball with the Gravity line. So that's good to keep in mind. PS, check out tennislearn.net for more tennis stuff, and also our course, Unstrung Nerds. We have a course where you can learn more about tennis and develop your strokes in your game and so on. And I also have a racket course where you learn more about rackets, how to get to that point where you're really comfortable with your setup, with strings, all the specs, the customization, and so on. That's all. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.